I thought today you would be the best person to do something we've done in the past, but it's been a while, which would be almost like create like a beginner's guide to the carnivore diet and kind of guide people
Yeah.
along and help them, determine what things they're going to eat. I'm getting more and more people that are reaching out to me, friends and people that are seeing my posts and strangers that want
Mm.
to try carnivore. So I think the word is getting out there, and you'd be a wonderful person to help out with that. We also need to tell your story and how you found the diet. Before we get to all of that, I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball and talk about something that we mentioned in the introduction: skin cancer. To
Yeah.
prepare for this interview, I took a barefoot, shirtless walk outside. It's very close to solar noon, about a week away from the summer solstice. And I am
Mm.
not wearing sunscreen. I haven't worn sunscreen in years. What kind of lecture would you like to give me about skin cancer?
Well, skin cancer is a really interesting thing because I live in Queensland, which is basically the skin cancer capital of the world. We have the highest rates of skin cancer, highest rates of melanoma in the world, and they are going up. It's a very interesting question, actually, because look, the standard medical advice to anyone out there listening, watching is, cover up, use your sunscreen, use as strong a factor as possible, avoid skin cancer, go and get regular skin checks, get a check if you think there's something changing. That's the bottom line. That's the official line. Unofficially, skin cancer is a big problem, absolutely, but so is a lack of sunlight. This is a real problem. Vitamin D, incredibly important, and we'll come back to this. But actually, and really interestingly, vitamin D needs good levels of cholesterol to actually produce the vitamin D. You don't just get vitamin D from sun; it actually goes through a process needing cholesterol, which is really interesting. But we see there are certain things in our diet that can impact potentially the rates of skin cancer. And it's very interesting because you see a lot of people following a carnivore diet that will say, my skin is less sensitive to the sun. And you may have noticed that. I certainly noticed that. Now, if I go out into the middle of the, Brisbane sun and the UV is like 15, the UV index, yeah, I'm going to get a little bit of a sunburn. I do. I've tested it. But it is a lot less sensitive. My skin is a lot less sensitive to the sun since I went on a carnivore diet, which is absolutely fascinating. Now, there are things like celery dermatitis, for example. If you eat a lot of celery, you can get very photosensitive skin.
Hmm.
Now, the medical textbooks would say, well, no, but it's just celery. It's nothing else, just celery. There's this thing called celery dermatitis. That's it. But the things in celery, don't ask me exactly what it is about celery, but there's something in celery. They're going to be in other products. They're going to be in other plants. And this is where we come to the idea of, plant toxins. They're not just in single plants, they're shared across the spectrum, just in various, different quantities. So it's not out of this realm to think that plants can actually make you more sensitive to the sun. We know this is the case because you look at celery. You get lime juice on your hands, like people that go picking limes. It's not the lime juice that actually burns them. You go and put lime juice on your hands, sit in a dark room, nothing will happen. Well, pretty much nothing will happen. You go out into the sun, and that lime juice will start to burn your skin. It's the reaction with the UV, with the sunlight. You use a UV light, it'll do pretty much the same thing. So the idea that plants can actually affect our skin is not that alien. So the official line is, yes, cover up, use your sunscreen and so on. But unofficially, yes, there are a lot of benefits to getting a lot of sun. Lack of sunlight is a big problem for us. And I see that here a lot, in Brisbane, Queensland, the sunshine state, as we call it here, clear skies almost every single day, yet we have enormous rates of vitamin D deficiency. Why is that if we've got so much sun? Well, it's because people are avoiding the sun. They're not going out. They're covering up. They're using sunscreen. And this is a big problem. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, it's such an interesting thing to kind of think about and weigh the pros and cons and what the risk is. I'm just curious. This would be pure observation and anecdote, since this is something that you've done. Obviously, you're not doing like a randomized controlled trial, but just anecdotally, when
Yeah.
you see people that come in with the more severe forms of skin cancer, which is, I believe, melanoma is the big most deadly one.
Mm.
Is it more people like me that have tried to build up a base of a tan, and if it does get too hot and the sun's at the very top, I try to find shade or whatever when I need to? Or is it people that maybe are lighter skinned, that don't get exposure to the sun, that then go on a vacation and get fried? Or you also hear that melanomas also appear in places where the sun don't shine anyway. What have
Mm.
you observed as far as that goes?
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. I mean, yes, look, I've not done any randomized control trials or anything in it. It's all anecdote, but yes, melanomas can actually appear anywhere on the body or in the body. Melanomas can arise from pretty much any cell in the body. You can get them in your bowel, which never sees the sun. So sun is not the only risk factor. Honestly, it's just a mix of people. I mean, we very rarely see them on darker skinned individuals. With the Fitzpatrick type, kind of 5'6" skin. It is more common on people with lighter skin tones. Interestingly, anecdotally, whilst the risk is theoretically the highest in people with the lightest skin tones, the Fitzpatrick type 1, blonde hair, kind of redheads. They actually, anecdotally, for me, they have less of a risk because they are much more aware of the sun, because they just literally, like, one of my friends back in England, he'll burn in the moonlight. Just the reaction to bouncing off the moon. They're much more aware of the risks to them, so they are a lot more conscious of those risks. They get a lot more skin checks done and so on and so forth. It's probably the people who just don't pay attention to the sun. They are the highest risk that I see. The people that just don't really seem to care. They don't respect the power of the sun. They also the people that don't really respect the benefits either. They just, I just want to go and get a tan, and they just lay in the sun all day long, 24/7. And they think it's cool to just burn, and this is great, because I'll burn, I'll get a tan. It's not the people that are just getting that baseline tan, just getting that little bit of sun exposure. It's not the people that are getting like an hour a day or whatever it is. It's the people that are sitting there 24/7, and they're putting and they're just baking. Basically, they're just literally frying themselves in the sun. Those are the people that are getting the skin cancers mainly. Everyone does, but those are the main people. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's a really good explanation, and I think we could, kind of what I tell people, I guess, is like use common sense. Like, don't go out in midsummer, midday sun if you don't have a base, and even if you do, like,
Yep.
try to find shade, try to avoid sunscreen where possible. Work on your base in the wintertime or when the sun is low on the horizon, and start to develop some color. Even if it's not, strong enough to generate vitamin D, you can still start generating some pigmentation, and just use common sense. And like so many other things in our world, the people that are waiting around for the randomized control trial, the thing that says, carnivore diets are the very best thing, like, you're going to be waiting a long time. Even just a few weeks ago, my wife did a blood test. It came back that her LDL cholesterol is above 200.
Mm.
Horrific if you believe that LDL is causative of heart disease. Yet we're looking at her HDL, which is above 110, which is the highest I've ever seen, and her triglycerides are below 40. So it's just one of those things that we have to make common sense based on what we're observing. If she feels good and feels healthy, like, probably okay. So just use common sense.
We do, absolutely. I mean, I think it was on when Dr. Chaffee, Plant Free MD, I'm sure you know him, his podcast. Can't remember exactly now, but somebody said, if you're waiting for the randomized control trial to tell you what to do, you're probably already dead, basically. So I'm not sure if I've lost you. Your video's frozen on my end. Oh no, I've got you back now. And that's quite true. These randomized control trials, they take so long to kind of get those results to people that you're pretty much going to be waiting a very, very long time for it to tell you what to do. So a lot of it actually does come down to common sense. I mean, just going briefly back to skin cancer, I tell people, common sense. If you go outside and it feels like the sun is burning your skin, it's burning your skin. It's not rocket science. You put your hand on a hot hob and it feels like it's burning you. You don't just leave it there and hold it there until you say, where's your randomized control trial that tells me that I should take my hand off this hob? No, you just take your hand off the hob because it's clearly burning you. You don't need the randomized control trial. You jump out of a plane with a parachute. There's no randomized control trial that says you should wear this parachute. Obviously it's not ethically safe, ethically responsible to say, well, let's test this. No, we know that parachutes work. Logically, it makes sense. I often say to people, in the absence of evidence, apply logic. And I think that actually, brings us back to the carnivore diet. It is logical that a diet that is really predicated on what we predominantly ate as as evolving humans is going to be good for us. That logically makes sense. That's how evolution works. 2.5 million years roughly, we've been eating meat, and all of a sudden now meat is bad for us. It makes no evolutionary sense.